You're listening to Building the Broncos with Nick Kendell and Carl Dumler, Broncos country's leading draft and scouting analysts. Get on over to milehighhuddle.com to sound off on all things Broncos.
Running here in a second. Looks like things are starting to roll here. Wait for that second thumbs up from Luana in the background while I stall to torture me at this point. Oh, is that a thumbs up? I think we're good to go, folks. Welcome in. Broncos country, good to have you on this fine Tuesday evening. I think it is Tuesday. All the days start to really run together. I've been running around like crazy, but happy to join you for a little bit of normalcy on my end. Carl, it's great to see you. Happy Tuesday. Welcome into the Building the Broncos podcast, live stream show, whatever you want to call it. Building the Broncos. We're here for you.
Well, thanks, man. I decided to go a different color shade of orange. You know, I feel bad for the Browns losing that tight game, and I feel bad for all the people who lost money on the safety at the end of the game, for all my betting people out there. But
degenerates.
Yeah.
Hello, degenerates.
That's right. But no, it's fun. We get to talk about a great victory this last weekend and maybe what it could mean for the future of the Broncos. I mean, that's a great conversation to have.
Yeah, I mean, it's always more fun to come in here and talk after a win. I still stand by the fact that maybe the best case scenario would have been some stupid, losing because of the refs, or like just a fluke kind of call where you move up the draft order and Drew Lock still has that incredible game. But you know what? You can't control it. And that's 2020. That's been the theme of 2020. Control the controllables, let the rest go. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you react. So hopefully that goes beyond football, obviously. Carl, you're the preacher. I don't need to preach to the people. It was a great game. Obviously, it was fun to see a passing offense with some explosive plays. It was fun to see Drew Lock. I mean, essentially he did everything that you'd hope to. I mean, there were still some mechanical things. I'm not expecting perfection. I mean, We saw what Patrick Mahomes did this week. It wasn't perfect, but we saw a great game from Drew Lock, and we're going to dig into that a little bit more. But it's great to come in here and talk. And I know a lot of people will be maybe giving me a hard time about it, because I've always been very much, I'm a man of science, Carl, you're a man of faith. I'm always like, I need a bigger sample size. I need to see it replicated. You know, I'm not all in after one game. I want to believe, but that goes against every fiber in my being. I'm seen as believing guy, despite what the Christmas sweater would indicate.
Yeah. And I mean, technically this Saturday is going to be his 16th game starting.
Yeah.
Now, I only count 14 games so far because that Pittsburgh game, he went out so quickly. I don't really count that one. But technically, this will be his 16th game. So we've got one full season of actual film to look at and really digest what this guy's done. And I did a little breakdown for somebody earlier on our Facebook page that we have for Mile High Huddle. And
what is that called?
The
Super Fans?
Yeah, the super fans. There you go.
You want to plug it? There you go.
Yeah. So anybody you want to go over there, we do chat on there every once in a while. But just looking at his games, I mean, he has a lot of games that I graded on a curve because he is young. Yeah. He had a lot of games that fall in that average category, and then about 4 or 5 games that fall into that bad category, about 2 games that fall into that great category or that good category, and about 3 games that fall into the great category, that I would say.
Okay.
I count the Detroit game as a great game. I know the stats don't really show that, but I thought that was one of his best decision-making games and accuracy games that he's shown in the 14 games so far.
Yeah, I guess I just have a little bit of a hard time calling that great, considering that was like not only, we're going to go back to the bicycle analogy, not only were the training wheels on, but Dad was holding on to the bike as well in terms of the offensive play calling that one. They were really like, you can't mess this up. You're just getting some confidence, training wheels and Dad holding on. And also the Detroit pass defense was either the worst or the second worst in the NFL last year, which matters and probably says something to still playing the game with the training wheels. But still, you got to go out there, you got to execute the game plan, and he did that. So I won't fight you too hard on that one. I mean, also, I think that Texans game, we saw flashes, but a lot of it was the results were better than the process. So, it is what it is. And when you have a guy with tools, sometimes that can happen. So, that's great. You'll live with that. And hopefully we saw peak Drew Lock performance this week. He made plays outside of structure. He made plays down the field. He utilized his legs. He was throwing plays off balance. And outside of that fumble, which you put a little bit on him for that, just a little bit. I mean, it was a 3-step drop and he was popped, but he could have protected the ball a little bit better. But other than that, I mean, I thought it was a good game. So we'll definitely get into Drew Lock more specifically here. But guys, we got to do some matters of business first. We really appreciate you guys coming in. Tonight's live stream podcast is brought to you by sportsbetting.com. Broncos country, gambling is now legal in the great state of Colorado. And here's what makes sportsbetting.com a no-brainer for all sports fans out there. They have sharp odds and low juice. They have in-house bookmakers, so they don't use a third-party provider of odds. They also have reduced juice and the best prices, so that's obviously great. They have hassle-free bonuses with a one-time rollover, which means the bonus money is yours after you bet it just one time. Some other sites, sometimes it takes 5 to 30 times betting before you can get that money. You get it one time with sportsbetting.com. They also have 24/7 live customer support. So always there's a real person on the other side to answer you. Here's the kicker also. At sportsbetting.com/Mile High Huddle, you can get a 100% risk-free week of sports betting up to $1,000. 1G. Not just one bet, but all of your bets. Play for a week, and if your losses exceed your winnings at the end of the week, sportsbetting.com/Mile High Huddle will cover 100% of the difference up to $1,000 with a one-time rollover. So head on over to sports betting at www.sportsbetting.com/Mile High Huddle. Again, that's www.sportsbetting.com/Mile High Huddle and capitalize on a risk-free week of sports betting up to $1,000. Also, guys, make sure you find us on Twitter. I am Nick Kendell, MHH. You can find Carl at Carl Dumler, MHH. We're very active on Twitter. I was a little bit more active before I was, so I guess we'll just say balls deep in the vaccine trials that I'm in right now. I am very busy with that, but that's I guess that's a good thing. So yeah, that's better than just scrolling on Twitter. Although I will say there's a lot of times I would prefer just talking some football theory and team building with you guys. I mean, this show is literally called Building the Broncos. We live for that. Yep. Also, guys, if you are joining us on YouTube today, do us a huge favor, like, subscribe, and share our show. That can help us continue to bring you this show. It also helps the Huddle Up podcast, the Mile High Insiders, the Dove Valley Deep Divers. Click those thumbs up or laugh react or heart react, whatever you want to do. If you're watching on Facebook, if you're joining us on iTunes, if you're a podcast listener, because these shows go out after the live stream onto iTunes, leave us a 5-star rating and a comment, and good or bad, just let us know how you feel. Give us some critiques, because we're always looking to get better out here and hopefully finish strong like the Broncos will this season. Also, don't miss all our great offseason content at milehighhuddle.com, an affiliate of Sports Illustrated and part of the Maven Coalition.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Man, it feels nice to celebrate a Broncos win, and what better way to do that than with Coors Hard Seltzer, because this is not your average seltzer, gang. Rooted in Coors' long history of sustainability is a brand inspired by a generation that wants to do good in the world with a mission to restore America's rivers. Never before has it been so easy to make a difference, make an impact, be an activist, and never before has it been so enjoyable. Coors Hard Seltzer is launching the world's easiest volunteer program. Whatever you're doing, by simply cracking open a can of Coors Hard Seltzer, you're volunteering. Our waterways, gang, are at risk. 80% of America's rivers, they're drying up. But through a partnership with Change the Course, Coors Hard Seltzer is helping to protect and restore America's rivers. Each 12-pack of Coors Hard Seltzer, here's how it works, restores 500 gallons of fresh water to U.S. rivers and the communities that depend on them. And the results, 1 billion gallons of water restored to 16 river basins across the U.S., including the Colorado River. And that's just year one. You get 4 refreshing flavors, 1 cool cause. Enjoy naturally flavored black cherry, mango, lemon lime, or my favorite, grapefruit, and the specs are in, gang. Coors Hard Seltzer is 4.5% ABV. And Zach, it's only 90 calories.
Man, Chad, I am hyped after a big quality Broncos victory. I'm celebrating with my Coors Hard Seltzer. I got my mango flavor. It's my personal favorite. Combining football and Coors Seltzer is the way to go for any football fan, Chad.
So join the world's easiest volunteer program. By simply drinking Coors Hard Seltzer, you can volunteer to restore America's rivers. You buy Coors Hard Seltzer, you help restore 500 gallons of water into America's rivers. It's really that simple. So visit CoorsSeltzer.com to find Coors Hard Seltzer near you. That's CoorsSeltzer.com.
For every 12-pack sold through 8/31/2021, Coors will purchase services from Change the Course to restore 500 gallons of fresh river water. Details at CoorsSeltzer.com. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Fort Worth, Texas.
I know the Broncos are now picking 13th. I think in the draft right now, I think they're 13. So that changes the draft conversation, and we're going to be here along the way to kind of talk about what that means. The Broncos picking in the mid there. It's now we're not in a a quarterback conversation there, probably in those mid rounds, especially if Locke he doesn't even have to play like this again to be out of that quarterback conversation in the first round. Just needs to be more like that Miami game or the Chiefs game. And we're talking, I think, fine for 2021. So appreciate it if you guys would do that. And Carl, let's get going. Drew Lock, once again, man of the hour, the conversation, and probably as excited as I've been about him all season. I mean, even coming into the season, I was excited, but there was obviously some talk about a little bit of erratic mechanics, accuracy. Is he getting the Shurmur offense down? Shurmur has kind of started to change the offense a little bit. I think not too much. I think some people are overemphasizing that, but Drew Lock is doing a good job of taking what the defense gives to him and then unleashing when it's called for. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about Aaron Rodgers is that he will get the balls to his playmaker, here or there, but if he can draw you off sides or you make a mistake, he is bombs away. And we were seeing that from Drew Lock this week, not the extent of the false start or the offside throwing it deep, but still taking the shots when they were needed and moving the offense. I mean, there were times where I think it was like 2nd and 8 on his first play where he was off balance and hit Nick Vannett to the right, and it made it 3rd and 1. And that's a winning down. If you can do that, you're going to move the chains. That's enough to win and to keep that job. And that's not a big thing, but to be able to escape that pressure. I mean, they looked like they slid to the right and 2 guys came off the left, avoided the pressure, got the ball to him. Broncos get the first down on that next play. So doing that, those little things, just keeping the offense on time. That's something we haven't seen with Drew Lock that much this year. More recently, the Miami game, the Chiefs game, we're starting to see it a little more. But gosh, we know he has the tools. I said last week, maybe it was not on this show, maybe it was on the Mile High Insiders, but like Drew Lock, he's got balls too. Like he's got testicular fortitude. There's no question about that. The question is about the accuracy, the mechanics, the intelligence with the processing speed, and just learning to live another down. And he did that so much better this week. And because of that, he was able to have the explosive plays. So, I mean, I'm beside myself. I think I'm as happy about everything right now as I could be.
I think last year, going 4-1, having that Houston game where he just had the big plays happened.
Yeah.
Noah Fant had a couple of really big plays. Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, all those guys had big plays in that game. And he talked about it afterwards of that idea of I'm a 3-point shooter. I'm going to keep throwing them up even when I'm 0-5. I'm going to shoot that 6th one. And I think he's learned that could only work so much in the NFL. You can get away with it for a few games, but the reality is teams will start taking that away and make you have to, in some ways, kind of dink and dunk down the field and show them that you can stay on task, on time, and make the smart throws. And this last game, that's exactly what he did. And that was the biggest difference that you're starting to see from earlier in the season to these last 3 games. There's still times where he is wanting to take those shots. And this last one, he timed them well. Against the Chiefs, he had a couple of them that he just didn't make the best decisions. Obviously led to a couple.
The one that was the screen to the left where it like bounced off somebody's hand or something, that would have been a pick 6.
Yeah.
I think in the Chiefs game, I think Tyrann Mathieu was like hauling ass to the end. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yes. But yeah, so there's still some bad decisions, and you got to expect that. Again, he is a young player, and you have to kind of grade on that kind of curve that he's going to have some bad games. I mean, even Kyler Murray, he's been up and down this season. He started out the season on fire. He's kind of lowered for a few games. Now he's starting to get back up there a little bit. So he's just kind of all over the place. It just happens with young guys. I mean, Patrick Mahomes throwing 3 interceptions this last weekend. It just happens sometimes. But this is what we've said all season. We just got to see Locke take steps in the right direction. And those first probably, about 8 or 9 games, you saw the exact same mistakes being made over and over again. And that's what was driving us crazy on this show of just saying we're not seeing him learn from those mistakes.
If anything, he was regressing.
Right, exactly. And I do think some of the pressure in media and fans and everything else kind of getting on him, that's going to weigh on you.
And Locke, it does sound like, reading between the lines, Locke is somebody where he's not sitting in bed at night reading every single fan's reaction, but he does take a lot of it to heart. So, I mean, he cares a lot, maybe too much. And, that can be a good thing, but sometimes it can be a bad thing. I think he puts a lot of weight on himself to be perfect and to carry the team, and that's when things can snowball. Right. So anyway, just kind of wanted to add in a second.
Yeah, no, you're right. And so it does seem like he's finally starting to listen to the right voices. of listening to John Elway tell him, hey, I did the same thing when I was a young guy. I had to learn to take what the defense gives me. And Brett Rippon, another smart guy, we've talked about it on here, that he's possibly going to be a coach in the future. He's got that kind of intelligence to his game.
Is that on sportsbetting.com? Because I would be in on that bet.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think he's proving it right now. Of even Drew Lock has talked about it a couple times now, of Brett Rippon is a big voice in his head telling him, hey, take what they give you. Take what they give you. And then those big plays will come as the teams have to start crowding up closer and closer. And that's why I think this game against the Bills is going to be the ultimate test for him, because they play that Tampa 2 defense, which is pretty much, we're going to take away a lot of the deep options for you, and you are going to have to hit in those kind of zone areas. You're going to have to time your throws right, and you're going to have to dink and dunk down the field, and we're going to make you have to not make a mistake. This is that ultimate litmus test to me for Drew Lock and how much he has grown from week 1 to now this week 15 or week 14.
Yeah, I mean, it is a great test. The Bills defense isn't what many people thought it would be coming into this year. I mean, last year they finished as a top 5 defense. This year they're okay. They're playing about average. I think they have more talent than where their stats are falling. But I think it's a really interesting team for Drew Lock because they have that length in the middle of the field, where Drew Lock does seem to prefer going with the football a lot of times. And he does like to throw deep every once in a while, but a lot of his success has been over the middle of the field. And with Tremaine Edmonds, who is one of the longest linebackers in football, 2 really good safeties, that you'll see a lot of 2 high shells, but sometimes you'll see him come down to. I mean, Micah Hyde and Poyer have the ability to come down and kind of do a little bit of box work / slot work as well. So it will be interesting, and also one of the best cornerbacks in football. But what can you do? We'll see what happens. Biggest thing will be, can the Broncos defense keep the game close and the Broncos offense not give the game away early? So that way, at least I think if the Broncos have a lead with how good the offensive line has started to look, God bless you, Mike Munchak. Everybody, just an aside, hashtag God bless Mike Munchak. Gosh, man, what a good get that was. I think this is a big game. The Broncos, though, need to keep it close early because the recipe's there. You know, this isn't a game where you put it all on Drew Lock, but it's complemented by having a lead, solid defense, even though the cornerbacks I think they're going to tap you and I on the shoulder here soon to go play. Yeah. And, but I think keeping it close and having that formula where, you know, they're not relying on catching up, that's when you can see Lock do his best.
Yeah. There's a video on Twitter of an Eagles fan, since they've had a lot of injuries. And he was talking about how they're having to bring guys off the streets. And he goes, something about, I played 2 years varsity. There's the best shape of my life.
There's a really good It's Always Sunny episode too, where I don't know if you guys are Always Sunny fan. If not, it's my favorite show. I'll be completely honest, but they try out for the Eagles and it is hilarious. God, I love that show. It
would end terribly, but let's get to some of these super chats. We've been talking here for a while, and Mohammed Badri coming in here with a hello all. Love the gear you got on there. And yes, hello to everyone in the chat. Really appreciate seeing a lot of the regulars here today. And then we got Brian Greenfield coming in here with the super chat. If Moody can stay healthy, he could be the steal of the draft.
I think that says multi.
Oh, sorry.
He means Moody.
Yeah, I know he does. Yeah, sorry. Like I said, I don't have my glasses today. They snapped in half.
He filled in the gaps. It's all good.
Yeah.
I think there's something where you can read any word as long as it's the correct letters and the first and the last letter are correct. Like, did you read that sentence? All the words were jumbled. You didn't even notice it. Your brain filled in the gaps. It's like, oh, well,
there we go.
What do you know? Thank you, Ripley, believe it or not, or whoever I read that from. Brian Greenfield, really good conversation here. And I guess I would like to get to Drew Lock more, maybe down the stretch. We'll see if a super chat comes in or we can pivot it that way. But I do think this is one of the conversations that I really wanted to have was Moody in this game. Now, he has had multiple horrific injuries in his career. That's a reason that he fell to the end of the 5th round. Was it the end of the 5th round or beginning of the 6th? I get him and Stranad mixed up because they were taken so close together. I think he was the beginning of the 6th.
Yeah.
Yep. And Stranad was like one of the last picks in the 5th round. He had an incredible game. His pass blocking was okay. I mean, there was a couple times where it was like, you didn't see the feet, or I don't think the right tackle was an issue as well in some of those plays because There's synergy on offensive line, guys. Everyone drank Nick said synergy. But Moody was a heck of a player. And the thing that's really just incredible is his power. His raw power is, I can't think of the last time the Broncos had an interior player with the power that he has. I mean, Luis Vasquez was really good there for a few years. Ron Leary was good, but they didn't have the raw power that Moody has. I mean, Moody's out there looking like, former Mikey Potty. Like, that's the level of power that he was showing out there, and he was blasting open holes for Melvin Gordon. I know Phillip Lindsay has not played well since his knee injury, but I mean, Moody is going to make it really interesting in the offseason of what the Broncos are going to do with the offensive line math. I mean, because you paid Glasgow, he's here next year again. You took a third round center who's been playing his best ball as of late, and it should be that much better next year. You have Reisner. I mean, what are they going to do on the interiors? And interesting. Now, that being said, people are like, oh man, let's say worst case scenario, Glasgow's the flex player where he's like the center, the first guy off the bench, he's center and guard. That's a good problem to have. Yeah. It's like, oh, we're paying all this money for a guy. Well, you're also not paying diddly for your left guard, center, and right guard because they're all on rookie contracts. So, that's, you're not getting the savings, so to speak, but you're also not, shooting yourself in the foot. So it'll be interesting. I'm very excited about Moody. I hope we see him again this week. I would love to see him against Ed Oliver. That would be a heck of a matchup. And, I'm a guy who's a skeptic until I see it again, coming back to the science thing. So I was not counting on Moody for anything. Count me in now. Man, count me in. Yeah. That was impressive.
I said halfway through the game that he is already our best run blocking offensive lineman on the team. And I know that's probably jumping the gun just a little bit because he did have a couple plays where he got a little too excited, missed his guy, and almost lucked into a couple times where he missed his guy, got to the second level and hit another guy.
Yeah, I was surprised about his movement skill in the run game. Yeah. I'll be honest. Now, they did a lot of good stuff in tandem where they're moving to the second level, but watching Moody at Fresno State, I wasn't sure how good of a mover he would be. I thought it might be Will Hernandez syndrome, where he's really good in a phone booth, but if you ask him to reach block or get to a second level, he's not going to get there. Right. But I mean, he was doing it, and he was pushing guys out and then getting to that next level. So the inside zone, I mean, the power schemes that they're going to be able to do, I am curious to see if they are going to be able to pull as much with him, just because, again, I don't think he is as fleet of foot as a Reisner or a Glasgow, but just that power. Yeah. Oh, now, if they can get that right tackle squared away where you have somebody that can cover some of his athleticism in the pass blocking, we're talking about, I mean, really, if Juwan James comes back next year and play his average right tackle, this offensive line could be top 7. I mean, yeah, really.
I mean, with how bad offensive line play has been around the league and how much the Broncos have improved throughout this season, like you said, I mean, Cushenberry's improved. He is looking much, much better these last couple games. It is night and day from what he was showing earlier in the season. Calvin Anderson deserves some props too for the game that he had. But Moody, there was some communication errors. I mean, the sack fumble, they went right after his hole.
Yep.
And he decided to double with Wilkinson instead of seeing the blitz was coming up the middle, left a guy wide open for an easy sack.
That said, Jeremy Chin is having a phenomenal season. He's a special player. So
he is. And we loved him on this show quite a bit. We wanted the Broncos to take him.
That said, just quick aside, Carl, I'm jumping in here, but I know we're still talking about offensive line, but we had a battle of second-round picks this game for the Broncos. And we had Jeremy Chin on one side, who many people wanted, Steve Atwater's nephew. Obviously, Broncos have questions about safety long-term. Mm-hmm. But the Broncos' second-round pick, I think, showed up even better. And,
okay,
AJ Hamler.
That's true. Good point. Which one would I rather have? That's a tough question. Yeah, it would be. But back to Hamler. Yeah, you saw what he did for the offense. You saw how much he makes a difference with that speed, his ability to take the top off of defense. And I'm excited to kind of see then how teams adjust to that and then how the Broncos attack with that adjustment. So let's say teams have to start worrying about that and keep an extra safety back there, and they aren't able to play quite up as much because you saw in this last game, the safeties kept coming up to help out with Judy, which left Hamler the ability to go deep. So now, if that safety stays back, well, then that leaves Judy open and Noah Fant over the middle. So that's the nice thing when you got this many weapons and you got this much athleticism on the field. This is why you talked about it all the time. I'm not trying to take your thing because you talk about having a basketball team where you got different types of weapons. You need all of them to really make it work. You can't have 5 of the exact same and expect your offense to completely work like you want it to.
I think I would not have any issue with 5 Tyreek Hills level type of player. Like if you're talking about, you can't have 5 plotters, but if you had 5 super speed guys, I think I could make it do. But
you could probably make it work. I mean, that's kind of talking if we get into basketball, that's kind of what the
5 LeBron Jameses.
Yeah, I guess so. But but no, it is. It's nice to see how they can play off of that.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
But Moody, it was a little bit, like you said, pass protection wasn't his best. A couple times he got caught really leaning, trying to be too aggressive almost instead of keeping his weight centered. And a guy like Ed Oliver will take big time advantage of that if he does play this week. And so he's got to learn from that to keep his weight, his base, allow his natural power to take over, not that he has to try to compensate with more power.
Yeah, no, that's a good call. And saw we had a shout out for Calvin Anderson and Elijah Wilkinson now from Spicy Mike. Wilkinson actually played solid. I think he gave us all PTSD. We see him out there and we panic. I'll need to go back and really look at Wilkinson to see what happened. But I think a lot of this also is the data with Drew Lock in there at quarterback. You know, we nitpick a lot of like the panicking when he feels pressure when it's not there, throwing off the back foot, escaping a clean pocket. Those things are issues. So need to continue to work on this offseason. But Drew Lock does a lot of good in helping the offensive line not give up pressures, not give up sacks. And I think he helped a lot. I mean, the Broncos were -3 starters on Sunday, and the offensive line still looked pretty darn good. Again, we're talking about locking up the hashtag God bless Mike Munchak. But I mean, I think not enough blame is put on the quarterback, I think, for offensive line stats. It's like if somebody sees one guy get beat, but a lot of time a good quarterback or even an average quarterback can overcome some of those issues. But again, like you're seeing that with Locke as far as the pressures. So I think Wilkinson had a solid game. He's not somebody that I am depending on. Going off, coming in here, going off is, as you'd say, yes, Locke is elite at not taking sacks. It's very true. And also it was even better this week because he wasn't taking sacks, but he also wasn't forcing the ball to the other team as much. And he wasn't just throwing it away. I mean, some of those plays with pressure, he made plays. And even if they weren't like explosive plays, positive yards, you can't go broke taking a profit, as they say. So it was good, but I'm really excited about what we saw from the offensive line this week. And again, we're giving Locke credit, but Mike Munchak, man, he is worth the whole entire offensive line's weight in gold.
Right. And that's, I had somebody make the comment of the Broncos need to really invest in their offensive line.
Yeah.
I'm kind of going, what more can they do than they've already done? They paid James in Glasgow. They just paid Bowles. They used a 1st-round pick on Bowles, a 2nd-round pick on Reisner, a 3rd-round pick on Cushenberry, a 6th-round pick on Moody. They brought in the best offensive line coach in football. They've done a lot for that offensive line. And you're starting to see the little pieces of growth. It wasn't going to be this day one, Munchak walks in the building and they are all of a sudden a top 5 offensive line. I mean, you look at his time in Pittsburgh. It took time to get them to where they became one of the top 3 offensive lines every single season. Now look at them. They're starting to regress.
They look soft.
Yes.
They look so soft.
So you're starting to see, again, just how important that guy brings, what he brings to the table. So year 3, when he's going to have the same guys from the year before, I mean, I guess Juwan James is going to be a little different. But beyond that, everybody else is going to be the same. I can't wait to see what they can do next year.
Yeah, it is going to be a lot of fun to see what they do next. I mean, the entire offense. Really, we kept saying it all comes down to Drew Lock. Can Drew Lock be a good enough quarterback? And I'm not asking him to be Patrick Mahomes or, Tom Brady or anything like that. Honestly, if he just plays Derek Carr level with Vic Fangio defense on one side and the weapons, and now the offensive line that's starting to be built around him, that's a playoff team. Easily. That's a playoff team. So obviously you want him to be better than Derek Carr long term, but that's kind of if he can get there, we're going to be interesting for the next 2 seasons because they're not paying him anything. And the Broncos have salary cap space. Doesn't mean they have cash, but they have the youngest offense in the NFL. and a bunch of guys come back. I think they have the second most, how does it come? The second least money coming off their books this offseason. Mm-hmm. Like they're not losing any players that they're really going to have to replace. Obviously, Justin Simmons, Shelby Harris, yes, but compared to other teams in the league, the Broncos have a lot of their guys coming back. So again, building on everything they add is just a bonus. Same with the entire offensive line. I mean, it's really just, if they add anybody, it's a plus.
It does sound like they are working hard to get a deal done with Shelby Harris before the season is done.
That would be amazing.
Yep.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's amazing what he has done in 1 year, because last year we were talking, don't pay this guy that $10 million a year kind of contract. And now we're going, pay this man. And that's just, he has improved his game that much. He has gone from a guy that, I mean, he made a lot of plays knocking down balls, and he still does that. But now he's actually making plays in the backfield, getting after the quarterback, applying pressure. He has become a more well-rounded player. He's shown better against the run. This last game wasn't his best game against the run, but for the most part this season, he has done really, really well against the run. And so he's just shown himself to be that true 3-down interior defensive lineman that you really look for.
Yeah, I mean, he's been far and away the Broncos' best interior defensive lineman. I know that everybody was pretty psyched about Jarrell Casey coming in. I was too, but Casey wasn't even that great this season. I mean, he's a better run stopper than pass blocker, and I don't think he has the multi-gap ability that we've seen from Shelby Harris this season. So if paying Harris means moving on from Jarrell Casey, then, what was that, a 7th round pick, 6th round? I don't even remember what they gave. I think it was a 7th. So It is what it is. We took a shot to improve the team. Didn't work out. All right, let's move on. And we got somebody here that we can allocate that money for. Sorry, I started reading Casey Martin's here. Shelby would be foolish to want to play anywhere else. The system brings out the best in him. I'm going to disagree a little bit with you, Casey, because it all comes down to the money. I mean, everybody wants to go be good and whatnot, but at the end of the day, it's a job, and I never fault a player for going somewhere and making more money. Obviously, you can make a business decision with your family where you're happier, where you are, the scheme. But Shelby Harris didn't have a big rookie contract. He got a 1-year deal this time. So if he wants to go chase the money, then he's earned that. Right. He's earned that ability to go do that.
And I think while his game has really grown in Denver, I think his game translates to other schemes as well. Now, I think, yes, he needs a team that wants him to attack, but there are a lot of teams that have interior attacking defenses that he can go play for. Chicago has that. Buffalo has some of that. So there's a lot of places I think he can still go and do well. Yes, he has refined his game here in Denver under Bill Kollar, and he has credited Bill Kollar with especially teaching him how to get his hands up and make plays like that. But I wouldn't fault him either for wanting to go and get the money. I mean, he's got a short window here. This
is the window.
Yeah, this is the contract. So I don't blame him one bit for wanting to go chase that. And I do think there's a lot of places he can go and still be very successful.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
But the ZW Design Super Chat here. Let us go with him the next 2 seasons, talking about Locke. He is better than what we have had since Manning. We just need to get him in a consistent offense since he had 6 offensive coordinators in the last 6 years.
Well, I mean, if next season is like what we saw from Locke this season, the Broncos will probably need to bring in a rookie pick somewhere at the quarterback position, because then you're bumping up against, do we pay him? And you don't want to be in the situation where you have to bring in Case Keenum, or you're starting a Trevor Siemian versus a Chad Kelly type, like that. You can't be in that situation. So it would really depend on what happens next season. I think we're going to see how the next 3 games play out. And I've been no matter how good he's been or how bad he's been, always ending with the stance that is not too high, not too low. We're going to see where he falls at the end of the year and take the entire sample size, good and bad, which there's plenty of both this season. But we are seeing the highlights, the tools. They're starting to show themselves more, and he's improving. So I definitely think he's earned himself next season. I do think they need to bring in like a Ryan Fitzpatrick, Chase Daniel, Tyrod Taylor, Andy Dalton level hedge, where, there are justifiable questions with Drew Lock concerning durability. And let's say Drew Lock is out 6 weeks. This is a potential playoff team. If you're going with Brett Rippon for 6 weeks, you're probably out of the playoffs. I mean, that just is what it is. So I think you probably do want to hedge like that way. It's not really Drew Lock is going to be battling for the starting spot come next offseason, but rather if he really struggles or gets injured, at least you're not going with a UDFA level quarterback, which again, I'll praise Brett Rippon's mind and acumen for the game. But when it comes to starting quarterback tools, no, no. But yeah, no, I think that's a good point, Z-Dub. I think 2-year commitment is a little bit too much. We're still talking about 2021. Let's see how next year plays out before we're that far.
Well, and I'll add this. As great as Locke is about avoiding sacks, he is terrible about avoiding hits.
Yeah.
He takes a lot of hits that he doesn't need to take. There's some of those rollout plays where he waits to throw it until he's getting hit. And the guy is open earlier to make the play. That he can make it and then give the guy time to go run and do something, but he waits until he's about to get hit. And so those are those plays that just they add up. And it's why you're starting to see some of the injuries kind of pile up for him. Even this last game, he came up limping after taking a hit there late in the game. And earlier in the week, his back was cramping up or something was going on with his back where he had to get treatment, ended up on the injury list. And so, yeah, you're right. You got to hedge your bets a little bit, as they say in the stock market world, I guess, kind of bring in a guy that you can trust that can go win you a couple games.
Every time I say anything negative about Brett Rippon, Kenneth comes in. Kenneth, I love you for it. He might be Brett Rippon for all I know. That's no, Kenneth, we're Facebook friends. I know. I'm just giving you a hard time. But yeah, no, it will be interesting. I like the comment there, Z-Dub. I just don't think I am totally ready to commit for 2 years.
Right.
I'm ready to go on some future dates as well, but I'm not getting down on one knee. I'm not ready for that. But so we got Paul coming in. Paul, great to see you. Always love hearing from you on Twitter. Flash Harris, pay him. He brings energy to the D. Flash Harris. I mean, that's not a bad name after he chased down Tyreek Hill 2 weeks ago, and also no glasses, caps. So there you go, Carl. That was just for you. Paul's giving you a little bit of a hard time there.
Appreciate it, Paul. I always needed a little bit here and there, but no, he's right. That play by Harris to trace him down. I mean, it just shows again the heart that guy brings to the defense. It's not only that he's a great player, but he's a great locker room guy. He's a great example to the young guys. There's just so much of why you need to go pay that guy at this time. It's amazing how much a guy can change your opinion of him in just 1 year. It's kind of like Garrett Bowles. He's changed a lot of people's opinions in 1 year. And it just shows the growth that a player can have. And you and I have always been on the train of we just need to see something from Locke this year that gives us hope that there is some potential. And he really struggled early on in the season and started really losing, not completely losing us. I mean, I still wanted him on the team, but it was getting to that point of if you're going to have a top 5 pick, it's hard not to want to go take a quarterback. Well, he's been able to win a couple games here and really get him out of that place. And so he's really starting to buy himself that opportunity for 2021. And that's great to see. That's what we want. We want to see the kid succeed. And I hope year 3 is where he makes that giant leap, but we're just going to have to wait and see.
So, we're having the chat coming in here. Appreciate you guys very much. I think I kind of want to talk a little bit about what to expect for these next 3 games from Drew Lock. What are reasonable expectations? Because you see people out there saying, oh my gosh, Drew Lock after this game, he's the dude for the next 10 years. He's the franchise quarterback, yada, yada, et cetera, et cetera. But then there are folks saying, okay, Lock has to have 3 games just as good as that to be the guy next year. And that's like, I mean, if that happens, then that would be incredible. But I mean, we need to just bring everybody in here, kind of have a fireside chat, physically distance, obviously 6 feet still. But we need to have a realistic conversation of what to expect over these next 3 games that is reasonable for Drew Lock and what it means based on how he plays.
So, okay. 1, a 4 touchdown, 0 interception, 149 quarterback rating. There's a reason that is the 3rd highest quarterback rating that a Broncos quarterback has had in their history. And they've had John Elway for all those years. They had Peyton Manning for all those years. And he's 3rd on that list. It is tough. You're going to start making me cuss here pretty soon. And I don't cuss. But I mean, it's dang hard to do that. So
I think we got the pass to say any curse words that are in the Bible.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Like ass is in for sure. I think that's not the same usage, but I think we can use ass.
Okay.
So, but I don't say to take anybody's name in vain. I'll do that. You can.
Okay. Okay, but no, to have that kind of expectation that he's going to, over the next 3 games, again, continue that 4 touchdowns, 0 interception kind of look, that's really impossible. You're setting the kid up for failure at that point. To me, if he can have a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, I would take that over the next 3 games. If he can show that he can make the good decisions, I mean, to me, it's not about the stats. It's more about the process that he goes through. The touchdown to KJ Hamler, the first one, he made a pre-snap read, seeing that the blitz was coming from the left side. He kind of drifted off to the right, knowing that KJ Hamler is going to have one-on-one deep. He made that change, that hot route change there right at the beginning to a 9 route. That's what I want to see more and more happen. Yeah. He wasn't doing that earlier in the year at all.
Yeah.
And so to see him making some of those kind of decisions to take the check down, to take the passes to the tight ends and the running backs and to complete those passes. I need to see a little bit better on some of those short passes. I mean, when he one-hopped it to Jerry Jeudy on a very easy throw, I think those are sometimes his hardest throws.
And he had a lot of big throws in this game. You didn't see too many throws that were multiple reads, in the pocket, intermediate, outside the hash throws, which are really the money throws in the NFL. I mean, KJ Hamler beating a guy deep, you have a big window there. Honestly, in that second touchdown, KJ Hamler actually could have used the ball being out a little bit further in front of him. He had that guy beat that much, and he had to slow down for it.
Right.
But, that's stuff where I can't really fault block that much, or Shermer for not calling those, because you were dealing with 3 of 5 offensive linemen out. And, Brian Burns is nothing out there at the edge rushing position. So, it is what it is. But as far as realistic expectation, you said 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. I honestly would take 3-to-2 even. If he's moving the ball, and say the Broncos, they're playing some decent offenses, but not great defenses. So if they're throwing the ball around and there's a couple of interceptions in there, he is still a gunslinger. You do want to protect the ball, but I'd still accept a 3-to-2. Maybe even, if we want to get even more specific, we can go farther down the ratio. But I think 3-to-2 is probably the way to go. And Duke coming in and giving me a hard time here, saying it's time to wrap up. We got 20 more minutes left, Duke. But I think that is probably where I'm going. Also, as far as the passing yards go, probably about 225 or more. And I think it was Ritter coming in here. I see you always in here. Diamond, good to see you. Diamond Rattler, excuse me. Locke could lose these last 3 games. He'll still be the guy. He's in a new system that had no offseason prep. Got to judge him at the end of next season. You got to judge him based on what you have. Every team's having to do that right now. So that's where you have to lean in. But the biggest thing I want to get into there is that Locke could lose these last 3 games. He could win these last 3 games. I put 0 stock in quarterback wins. It's not a stat. I think if you have a quarterback that's been in the league for 10 years, and given how much turnover there is, there's a little bit more into the wins, because correlation does not equal causation, but there's definitely some strong correlation there. But you could pick out a season of Blake Bortles. He went 13-3. He led a 13-win team. One season. I don't care. It's not a good stat.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think it was Mitch Trubisky, and his record was
they went 13-3.
Yeah, it was similar to, which quarterback was it? Was it Deshaun Watson?
I think so. Yep.
And so, those 2 quarterbacks are nowhere near the same level of play. One just had a great all-time defense that helped him to not have to really go do a whole lot. He made a few plays here and there, but he wasn't a great quarterback that season. And the other one is a true franchise quarterback that, honestly, you and I have talked about it. We'd trade 3-4 first-round picks to have him come to Denver, kind of thing. So you're right. That I think over a lifetime career, you can start seeing some of that really play out. But even there's some quarterbacks that just get put into such terrible situations. Matthew Stafford, if he went to anywhere but Detroit, what would he look like? What would his record be if he had an opportunity just to not have to go and throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns a game to actually win?
We also have John Boy coming in here. I guess if anyone cares, it has been confirmed that Matt Stafford will not be a Lion next year. I have not seen that confirmed anywhere, so quote John Boy on that, not me, even though I'm reading it. I've been busy in the dungeon on the front lines of a I can't say that word, of a nasty bug vaccine, working on that. So something like that. I haven't heard anything about that. I think that, if Drew Lock really struggles these next few games and the Broncos win one of the two and they're kind of picking in that 15 range, you have to look at Stafford just because of the window of the team. And the decision makers. Vic Fangio would be on the hot seat. John Elway last year. A lot of guys would be playing for their job at that point. They're coaching for their job. So getting in a guy like Stafford, who is a known quantity, it has to be on the table. But I think it's more likely Drew Lock's going to play. God, maybe I'm just being optimistic now, but I think it's more likely that you will see Drew Lock play decent down the stretch here, and they'll bring in somebody more like if it's the top end kind of thing. It's more of an Andy Dalton, Tyrod Taylor that they're paying $6, $7, $8 million to,
right?
Which is whatever.
The nice thing is these next three defenses aren't world beaters by any means, so he does have some opportunity to actually put up some decent stats.
Let's not mince words here. The Chargers and the Raiders defenses are, I can't cuss, but just trash.
Yeah.
Trash.
Especially the Raiders.
Really bad. Yes.
Yeah. They just fired their defensive coordinator for a reason.
Yeah.
And so we'll see who they replace him with. Hopefully not Wade Phillips, but no, it's true. He has an opportunity to really cement himself as the guy for 2021 and change kind of maybe that look of going from a Matthew Stafford or even like a trading for a Sam Darnold to a Tyrod Taylor. Those guys that are more the journeymen that go from team to team. So I'm hoping that's what he can do. We'll just have to see. The Raiders defense held Denver to 12 points.
The Broncos offense was also trash, especially in that game. But the Raiders since then have really, really, really fallen off.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
They got their butts absolutely destroyed by the Falcons, who are not good. They had to have a tanking effort by the Jets to win that game against the Jets. And they had another
blitz on when they have to throw a Hail Mary and you call a blitz. No one does that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. No, absolutely. And it said no more Band-Aid quarterbacks here from Albert Knoppers. Not really a Band-Aid quarterback. It's just improving the room. And again, it's a hedging your bet because Drew Lock durability is probably, if you think Drew Lock is the guy, I don't think you can really question durability. Durability is a question going forward for him.
Yep.
So it's just making sure that you're better suited for that.
Right.
It will be really interesting to see what happens. Carl, we have about 15 minutes left. We talked a lot of class here, but I think there's something here I want to kind of circle around. So we have Joshua Walsh coming in here with the tight end conversation. And I think it will be really interesting to see what the Broncos do in the draft right now. Looking like they're picking 13, probably going to end up picking between 12 and 16 would be my bet right now. I think the Broncos will win one or two more games this season. I absolutely do love Kyle Pitts. That being said, man, I just have a really hard time seeing how they can fit him on the roster, how it's currently constructed. Now, at some point, the player is just too talented where you can't overthink it. You just got to take him. And unless there's something else going on as far as medicals or character that people aren't privy to, cough Malik McDowell falling to the second round and then being out of the league in 2 years, despite having incredible tools. So that's one that is really interesting. Kyle Pitts, I would love him. Honestly, I think he's the best offensive weapon in the draft this year, especially with Jalen Waddle getting injured. I think, go ahead. That's
saying something. I mean, we got guys like Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good wide receivers. There's some pretty good running backs that are going to be in this one. So for him to be the best offensive playmaker, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, he's a special player. It's one reason that I am just so not in on Kyle Trask. I'm never going to be on a quarterback again that has no mobility, and Kyle Trask doesn't have any mobility. He's what's the word opposite sub? Super? I don't know. He runs over a 5 second 40, which is just you can't. I know a quarterback's not a running position, but it kind of is in today's NFL. I mean, when we see Jalen Hurts come in there, we see Drew Lock running away and escaping guys. Those pocket quarterbacks are a dying breed, and guys like Peyton Manning did it, Tom Brady did it, Drew Brees did it. Well, they had the chance to develop over years where the league wasn't like that anymore. Games changed, folks. Games changed a lot, and you don't have that time to get that guy to the mental area where they can be a statue quarterback. So Kyle Trask, I'm out. OUT out. But Kyle Pitts, I think he's the biggest one on there. I would consider him at 15 if the Broncos were picking there, just because he's that talented. But right now it stacks up. It seems like this team is going to take either a cornerback, an edge rusher, or an off-ball linebacker. Now, I still think an offensive tackle should be on the table, just because it really... That's one of those positions. It's like eating your vegetables, Like, the Broncos could go many different directions. Let's just freaking invest in the offensive line again. You don't know what Jawan James is going to be. Do we really trust Calvin Anderson / Elijah Wilkinson long-term? Would it be the worst to get a guy in there to push? No. Is it really a need? No, but it's something you could do. I mean, it's something empowering Mike Munchak, so to speak, but probably looking at the contracts, looking at the team setup, very old defense, very young offense, very expensive defense, very cheap offense. It's setting up to be a defensive player.
Yeah. So here's my only big argument for Kyle Pitts beyond just that he's an athletic freak is the Broncos have been using a lot more 2 tight end sets as the season has progressed. And you're seeing the offense show better ability with that 2 tight end set than when they were trying to do a lot of 3 wide earlier in the year. Now, given they're going to get Courtland Sutton back, so that makes a difference. It kind of pushes everyone else down the depth chart at the wide receiver position. So you're going to want to run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. You still have Tim Patrick that you got to figure out what you're going to probably try to do with him. Maybe sign and trade him. I don't know. Keep him for depth just in case Sutton or somebody gets hurt.
Given how severe that injury is for Sutton coming off of it and how good Patrick's played this year, I'm putting a second round tender on him. And if somebody takes him for that, then, thank you. I guess, Tim Patrick, I'm a fan. You've outperformed my expectations. I'm probably taking that second round pick.
Yeah, you're probably right. But because otherwise you're going to have to look to pay him later, and having a second round pick that you can have 4 years of controlled cost, always a good thing. But that's my one big thing with Kyle Pitts of Noah Fant and him working the middle of the field with Jerry Jeudy, and then you got Sutton and Hamler able to go deep. It just makes it you can't have too many weapons, but that might be getting close to too many weapons, too many options of trying to defeat everyone and make it all work out. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think my biggest issue is that you then have 3 tight ends who all do their best work detached from the offensive line. Good point. Every single one of them is an F tight end. Noah Fant is, honestly, he might be the team's best blocking tight end. I know Vinette was brought in to be that guy, but Fant's improved there a lot this season. But still, you don't want him to be a guy who's more consistently that 6th offensive lineman because he's such a freak in space. So you'd want him out there. Same with Albert Okwuegbunam. And we saw those kind of little quick flare passes to him this week to the tight end position. I mean, imagine those with horses like Albert Okwuegbunam and Noah Fant. I mean, we're really cooking then. But as far as Kyle Pitts, I mean, he's so talented. You probably have to have that conversation if he's there and just say, he was by far the best player on our board. I don't care what the position of need is right now. You draft guys for what they're going to be over their entire contract, and I think Kyle Pitts could be special. Then I won't get mad at all. Like that's playing the long game. That's playing the value game, even if it is a tight end. But I think if you're looking at tight end this draft, I think the guy who makes the most sense would probably be Pat Freiermuth. Excuse me. He's the guy from Penn State. He had a lot of injuries this year. Might be able to get him in the second round, but he is like 6'7", 255, and that classic wide tight end.
Yeah. I wanted to get to this from Richie Rich. We need interior pressure on defense. Getting that can make the entire back end better. I completely agree. The problem is this is like the worst draft for interior defensive linemen.
How dare you? Daveon Nixon from the University of Iowa, interior defensive lineman number 1, baby. He's
okay.
I mean, he's not a top 20 level pick right now, but yeah.
But like the past few drafts, we've had guys that we're talking top 10 players. I mean, just there was no doubt that they were going top 10. Even at this point in the season, we knew these guys are super talented, special players. This year, there's not one of those guys that's really emerged, and it is going to be so weird. Trying to figure out how to evaluate players just because of how the whole season has gone, games getting canceled left and right. Big Ten, I mean, they've got a 5-win team that's going to be in their championship game.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a weird season, but Ohio State did beat Indiana convincingly, so they deserve it.
I'm not disagreeing that they deserve it. I'm just saying you've only got a 5-game window to really evaluate a lot of those players on that team. And so it does make it difficult when we're talking about the draft. And some of these guys haven't had regular offseason of training and how to get ready for the season. So you're seeing them kind of slowly come along as the season progresses. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But I do like Nixon. I will say I do, even though he is an Iowa boy.
I mean, he really embarrassed Nebraska that week they played. So I know you were watching that with your Nebraska in-laws. So I bet you they know who he is.
Yes.
Man, he's a fun kid too. I'm a big fan of his character. Brings so much energy. We got Terry Randall coming in here. Nick's Beer Fund. New glasses for Carl. Hashtag State of Being. Honestly, I'm still waiting for Nick's ugly Christmas sweater. That's the hashtag I'm looking for. We also have Duke coming in here. Carl and Nick, thank you for your awesome insight. Here's to your water and beer funds. Honestly, I have a beer waiting for me upstairs. I just got in right at the last second here, and
I've had to run it. I've got iced tea today.
Yeah, that's bourbon. Don't lie to us. Straight up. Yeah, so I think, again, big thing here for the Broncos. And right now, everything I think is pointing towards cornerback. I think that's the position that would make the most sense. Now, granted, the position doesn't determine the draft pick. The board does. So if there's not a cornerback worth taking when you're on the clock, don't force it. That's like the worst thing you can do. I know people look at it as very like a snapshot in time. Like, well, this is a really bad position. We have to take it right now. Don't force it. The board determines the direction you go. The talent on the board determines the direction you go. But cornerback is definitely up there. I really wanted Caleb Fairley. I think that dream died on Sunday, which is unfortunate because I think he's got special talent. Right. But it is what it is. Maybe Patrick Surtain will be there about 15. I don't think he's a great athlete. I think he's very safe, but I don't think he's a difference maker that you're looking for to pick top 10 at the cornerback position. My guy, though, if we're picking in the 15 range, is Eric Stokes. I really, really like myself some Eric Stokes from Georgia.
Good choice. Very, very good choice. And I will say this, though. I've been so impressed with Fangio and Donatello's ability to really develop cornerbacks.
Yeah.
I mean, even Ojemudia getting benched, and he talked about this, that he had a talk with Fangio, and Fangio said, hey, get ready. You're going to have an opportunity again. And just really worked with the kid, worked with him on film, and I think he's come back even stronger than he was earlier in the season. He had some really good flashes early on. I think he's being a lot more consistent now as the season has progressed.
Yeah, Nick is stoked about Stokes. We also have a JC Horn question coming in here. I think that you really need this defense, and who was it here? Richie Rich coming in saying that we have developed cornerbacks. Why waste a first round pick there? Fangio's best defenses were with a stud cornerback. I mean, that Kyle Fuller out there on the boundary, what a difference maker for that entire defense with how much 3x1s they play. So it will be interesting. I'm not the biggest JC Horn fan for the Broncos. I think he is a little stiff, and I don't think he projects very well to be a guy who can play off ball and carry guys down the field. I think he's either strictly a press man kind of guy or a cover 3 kind of guy. I don't see him having the ability to carry dudes deep and to have the hip flexibility and fluidity to play the off ball coverage that is demanded by Fangio in the match quarters.
Yeah. Hard to disagree there. Christmas.
Here we go.
Oh, okay. So I'm all about the action when it comes to Christmas movies. So, I mean, I do believe that Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Lord of the Rings?
Yes.
It has elves.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. No.
And then, of course, I got to have my comedy action, the Home Alones.
Okay.
1 and 2, not 3 and 4.
Yeah, no, it's I don't know. I'm kind of more of a classics kind of guy when it comes to that. My wife's favorite movie, not just, in the Christmas genre, but all movies is It's a Wonderful Life, which I will always tear up at the end of that one. Always. I mean, it's God, that one just gets to me. I really love Elf. My family is very much a proponent of Elf culture. I really like Christmas Vacation as well. Honestly, my wife is not as big of a fan of that one, but I'm kind of like, we need to watch Christmas Vacation. Like that's really good. And I also really like Christmas Story. So
good choices. Of course, Christmas Vacation.
Yes,
can't leave that one out. That's a classic that has to be watched every single year.
Yeah, my grandpa was obsessed with that one. So I can still hear his laughter watching that one. So that's a good one. And Polar Express is a really good one as well. I do like the Griswold one. Yeah, Christmas Vacation with Chevy Chase is, if it's not at the top, it's right near the top. So that's great. Christmas Story, Harry Potter. I feel like a lot of people do some Harry Potter stuff. Oh, we have, and I know there's a really good offensive guys. I know we had a good offensive tackle talk going on in there. I saw somebody listing a bunch of them. I see Jay Taylor coming in here with an offensive tackle as well. Daniel Falele, who is like huge and might be interesting in the second round. Also, what's going on with Goku's eyes there, Jay Taylor? It looks like he's either in Washington or Colorado. Goodness. He's on that flying Nimbus life, huh? Or whatever the heck he calls his cloud. But no, that's we will definitely talk tackles at some people. I didn't even see anybody mention Jalen Mayfield is one that interests me a lot. The way the Broncos stack up, I'd be taking on a pure tools guy. So it would be interesting to see what happens.
So I did want to ask you a question here. You didn't mention this guy, and you were all about him last year, Shaun Wade.
I still really like Shaun Wade. I think that with how solid we've already seen Bryce Callahan look in the slot, as well as Asang Bassi, and also Wade's issues playing the boundary, I think he is going to be more of a pure safety slot type of guy, which has value. I mean, there's a need for that, but I am looking for a boundary cornerback. That's where this team really lines up as a need. Obviously, you can get away with Callahan, Ojemudia, and Bassi in the slot, but I don't think that's ideal. So I'm looking for more of a pure guy. I still like Wade a lot. I just don't think he has we've seen it this year. He just is not a guy who hangs on the boundary.
Okay.
So I think, again, if we're picking the 15s, man, I don't think enough people are talking about him yet. Honestly, the Dogs have two defenders that I think very much in play for the Broncos if they're picking in that 15 range is Azeez Ojulari, who is the edge rusher from them, who's got crazy speed to power. He's a little smaller, but I think there's versatility there. He plays in space. They like the versatile defenders. And there's Eric Stokes as well. So those are two names. There's also linebackers. There is J.O.K., who I'm not going to pronounce his name yet, from Notre Dame. I know they've been putting in some work at Dylan Moses as well. And Joseph Osai from Texas. A lot of work on edge, a lot of work at off-ball linebacker, a lot of work at cornerback. And those all make sense.
Right. I'm with you. Kenneth Booker, I have not seen this movie, A Long Kiss Goodnight. I will have to go watch that one. It is on my list now. So I appreciate the super chat, and I will go watch that.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something that we should check out. And guys, we're going to get on out of here. We're approaching that hour, and we get too long. The boss man gets a little frustrated with us. So that's it for us today. Appreciate you guys coming in here. You can find Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler, MHH. You can find myself at Nick Kendell, MHH. Guys, this was Building the Broncos podcast. We appreciate you for swinging by. Obviously, we're here every Tuesday night, sometimes on Saturdays or other days too when we're filling in for somebody. But Tuesday nights are our night. We've continued to bring you these shows on Tuesdays, and we'll continue to do so as long as you guys breathe air into us and let us do that. Make sure you guys are going over to milehighhuddle.com for all of our written content and MHH community content. Go to iTunes, leave us a 5-star rating and a comment. For YouTube, very, very important, guys. Like, subscribe, and share if you are joining us via YouTube. That helps us probably the most out of anything you can do. So if you're on YouTube, if you do that for us, that is a gigantic help. Also, Facebook, guys, click those thumbs up, and gals, click those thumbs up, and or heart react or laugh or react. I don't care. Just some reaction out there. Doing so can help really support us and bring you these shows. Also follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle and at BTB Football Pod. Carl, you have any plans for the rest of the day?
No, I'm probably going to go home, maybe turn on a little bit of a Christmas movie and fall asleep and get ready for the next day. I got an early day tomorrow. Got to go get the glasses. And then I've got a few other things, got a blood drive. So my day is pretty filled up. I got some kids coming over to my house for my daughter's class. So I got to figure out how I'm going to entertain them for a few hours. It's a whole thing. So I better go get some sleep.
Yeah, and Carl is not home, guys. I think Carl likes to record at his place of work.
Yes. Thankfully, it's right across the street from my house, so it's not hard to. Although we had a big snowstorm come through, and about 3 times today walking between the house and and the church, I've about biffed it. So,
well, stay safe, old hot Carl. I guess that will make me old, not hot Nick. But we appreciate it. You guys are the best. Honestly, you guys are the reason that we continue to do this and have the ability to do this. So we really do appreciate it. Also, shout out to Buana. Follow him on Twitter also at John K MHH KAY. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without him working in the background as well. So really appreciate that. He's the man, the myth, the legend. And even though you guys don't always get to see him on here, although I am really tempted sometimes just to flash his face when he's not expecting it. But really do appreciate it. And we will see you guys later. He knew that was coming. He took his face off. He knew I was about to add him. But appreciate you guys. Stay safe, make smart decisions, and we'll see you next week. Go Broncos.
You've been listening to Building the Broncos. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.